It's football season, and that means it's bug season. Heck, who am I kidding? It's always bug season in Texas. And that's why you need Grandeur Pest Solutions in your corner. They're locally owned and operated. They're trained, they're trustworthy, and they have a proven record as they have been in business for almost 10 years. They provide pest control against ants, bed bugs, bees, roaches, fleas, wasps, mosquitoes, rodents, spiders. If it crawls and you don't like it, they're probably going to take care of it for you. Now, they serve all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're locally owned. These two guys have been running this business since 2013, and every year they get bigger and bigger. But you know what they still do? They still have great customer service. In fact, if you get a hold of them, they're usually going to have your quote and your job ready to go within 48 hours. That's pretty good. Now, you can call them for a free estimate at 469-809-1769. You can find them online at Grandeur4, that's the number 4, shore.com. You can also find them on Facebook. Just type in Grandeur.
Here we go! Buck, here we go! Here we go! Here we go! Here we go!
It's time for the old time happy hour. So pick up your step and smile a while. Time to sing along.
It is Monday happy hour, but with a little bit of a twist. But unfortunately, it's just still me and intern Noe the Pro. Hello, everybody. Terry Bennett here on the Grandeur Pest Solutions OutDrank The Coverage happy hour. We thought we were going to be joined by my high school co-host Grant Goodwin to talk some college football playoffs, but he's not feeling well tonight. So it's just me and intern Noe the pro, but we still are going to be talking the playoff previews. In fact, this will probably be a little bit shorter of a show just because this week is state championship week here in Texas, and I've got about 6 shows I'm doing between Wednesday and Friday. And then actually a 7th show because programming note, intern Noah is going to be in studio to watch the last state championship game with me on our live stream watch party. And then we'll take about a 30-minute break, eat some pizza, get the drinks, because we don't drink during high school stuff, get the drinks ready. And then intern Noah and I are going to do a live Indiana versus Notre Dame hosting party as we watch the game with you like we've done on our Monday nights. And I'm actually looking forward to that. I think that game's going to be a lot closer than what people might think.
Yeah, I think so too. There are 2 teams that have kind of played softer schedules, both impressive resumes, but it's the Battle of Indiana, first playoff game, first round. This is a type of, this is where, first round, the better seed hosts the game, which is very foreign to the FBS division. FCS, they do playoffs, home games. But yeah, here's just the first round is gonna be pretty interesting. I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, this is only the second time we've really had playoffs in college football like this pure of, last year was and here we are with year 2, and they've expanded it to 12 teams. But we'll talk about all that. I do want to make the comment that, just saying Cowboys are still headed to the Super Bowl. Big win against that Panther team. I love this, by the way. We're going to jump college, but I got to get this in. I love all this talk about how, we figured out our running back situation. No, you've played really bad run defenses, folks. I mean, this has been fun. When you had the stretch we had in October, it's actually been fun to see them kind of pull out some scrappy wins. But let's not talk about signing Cooper Rush and Jalen Torbert and all them to extensions and not worrying about our offensive line and running back because they figured it out because they haven't figured it out. But let's talk about what we really want to talk about today. Well, let's just do some big full-on college football notes because, this past weekend was the College Football Awards. Controversy ensued. Let me ask you, first off, what are your thoughts on the Heisman Trophy and the winner?
I still love the Heisman Trophy. I think it's a nice event. The NFL doesn't really do that well with the award shows. So I kind of like when hockey does it, and I really like it when the college football, they do the whole Heisman Trophy presentation the Saturday after the regular season ends. I view it as most outstanding player for this season. I don't view it as the MVP.
Yeah.
And I think that some people do view it as the MVP. But this year, I think it was just two great candidates, and but quarterback on an undefeated team, and another quarterback that had a great statistical season, but just had a bad team around him.
Yeah.
Yeah, which kind of makes him even more. What he did was more impressive. I'm talking about Cam Ward at Miami. So yeah, I like seeing it. I think Travis Hunter was the correct choice for the simple fact that he plays two positions and he plays them pretty well. Maybe not the best at each, but he still plays pretty well at both. Um, Ashton Jeanty, outstanding running back. I could see that translate into the NFL. Uh, but yeah, you got a two-way player who's statistically one of the best at each position. So that was a no-brainer.
I think honestly, for the Heisman itself, this helps. This gives something that it hasn't had in a while, and that's some real buzz. The Heisman Trophy just has kind of, all award. I don't know what it is about it, and I have said it many times about how we watch sports is different now, and the awards are one of those big things. Like the NFL MVP has become such a weird thing where, Dak Prescott finished his second in the MVP last year, and people are going to still call him trash. It's the same thing with college football awards too. I don't think any award. I just think people have kind of got jaded with awards and stuff. So I think having a little bit of this controversy, having it be a controversy between two players who aren't quarterbacks, who weren't on number one teams, because we have legitimately had some. We've had either stat machines or guys who just happen to be on great teams. Quarterbacks win Heisman over the last 10, 15 years. And so it's nice to have two guys who aren't, in the quarterback position fighting for it. I had no problem with whoever won it. I think both had great cases. I think that's the way that it should always be with the Heisman. And I have no problem with Travis Hunter winning it. And I think at the end of the day, like you and I were talking before we started, people will say, well, he didn't lead the league. You know what? Janty didn't. Everybody thinks that Janty led all of Division I in rushing. He didn't. And it's been very rare that the Heisman has actually been the number one stat in whatever position they played. Usually it's the intangibles that win a Heisman. And for me, Hunter had those intangibles because he'd play 110 snaps a game.
And you make a good point. And any other year, Dylan Gabriel, quarterback for Oregon, would have won just because he was the star quarterback on an undefeated number one team. And it would have made sense in most years. But yeah, this year, I haven't seen anyone. Then there was no one more outstanding in 2024 than Travis Hunter. So yeah, I have no problem with it. I like the other awards too because you kind of get to see how it's being dispersed. John Mackey Award, it was definitely going to Tyler Warren at Penn State. He has 1,000 yards. He had a great game against Oregon in the Big Ten title game. So like, there's some stuff that was pretty obvious. Like you kind of knew who was going to get it. Were there any surprises to you as far as the awards go?
I as much as I just touted Hunter, him winning the Biletnikoff was kind of not weird. He was top 5 in all stats, but there were other guys who were top 5 in all stats at the wide receiver position as well. Every other one, and I've always said this, like if you're going to try to, let's say Kelvin Banks won the Outland Trophy, most outstanding interior lineman. I've always thought it's weird that some of these positions, like Outland can go offensive or defensive interior lineman. That's weird to me. Make it one or the other. But, somebody, you can argue that, I guess, but unless you play the position or just truly only watch the interior lineman, I don't know how you're going to argue that, if that makes sense. Other than that, no, I think everybody kind of predicted the ones that won. I don't remember any, surprises that stood out like, holy crap, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. The only one I said that could have probably been a little bit closer was Coach of the Year. I think Kurt Cignetti at Indiana in the playoffs, I think he did a great job. But I think what SMU did and Rhett Lashley and moving over into the ACC and going undefeated in conference play, that was pretty impressive.
It was, but I think at the end of the day, SMU, even as bad as SMU has been, SMU under a couple other coaches in the last few years have at least been solid. Indiana's just been, Indiana. And also Indiana, I know they didn't finish unbeaten, but the Big Ten is demonstrably better than the ACC. And again, that's why the whole, let's just go ahead and break it down. Let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so the awards passed. Did you agree with the playoff teams and the seeding and all that? Did you feel that anybody just, oh my God, got left out, or oh my God, got left in? How did you view it once the picks came out last week?
I was fine with it. I think they should do the seeding a little bit different. I think all five conference champions should be in the 1 through 5.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't. I understand that the fifth one is supposed to be the small or whatever, the non-power five. But if you're going to give if you're going to give a automatic bid, they've got to be up there with the other automatic bids, or at least allow them to. I don't understand why they automatically get locked in at the one spot. Let them be the seventh seed or the eighth seed. I think seeding is the thing that they've got to tweak next.
yeah, and we'll talk about the seeding. Do you have the picture of the playoff bracket
I don't know
available?
what you're talking about. Let me
Well, because that is a big controversy. As you're looking at this, clearly the winner of Clemson and Texas has a pretty good path to the Cotton Bowl, which will be the semifinals. So the winner of Arizona State and then Clemson, Texas will go to Arlington. So it's a good path for Texas if they win. And but like look, okay, the bigger one is like look at the top left. You see Ohio State and Tennessee. Now, Ohio State
Yeah.
had a pretty good year, and they beat Penn State on the bottom right of this screen. Why does Penn State have a much easier path to their semifinals? That's the thing that I think a lot of people are having
Well,
issues
I
with.
think Penn State should have an easier path than Ohio State. Penn State played in the conference championship game. Ohio State did not.
That is one that's irking Ohio State fans too. I think they see the fact that they beat Penn State as, oh well, then we should have switched spots with the Nittany Lions.
So,
But you make a good point. Penn State actually did get to the Big Ten title game because Ohio State at home against a 5-loss Michigan team lost.
this whole idea of we played them and beat them, college football fan, and mind you, 90% of college, I'm not say 9, I'll say 70% of college football fans are also NFL fans. And they understand it when they're in NFL mode. But now that college has full on playoffs, the we beat you only matters if you are the last two teams in and neither one of you are in conferences. Everything else, it's where you finished in your conference. Penn State finished higher than you, Ohio State, just like we always joke about it, you and I, in 1994, the Washington Redskins, now the Commanders, beat Dallas in both of their games. But Dallas went to the playoffs and Washington didn't because Washington didn't take care of the rest of their schedule. In fact, they were bad that year. So just because you beat a team does not automatically mean you leapfrog them anymore when there's a playoff. When multiple teams in a conference can make it. So any fan that's mad about that, you just have to get over it. I, as a Texas fan, totally agree. It blows my mind that they're the fifth seed. And, well, let's just go and get this right, out the record right now. And you know I am a Texas fan.
Yes.
I have watched this team all year long, and I am not in any way trying to claim that this team is not good. They are good. But I do not understand the full-on love that everybody has given Texas all year long. I'll go ahead and tell you right now, and we'll get into the game here in a little bit. I keep looking at this Clemson game like, I do not feel comfortable as a Texas fan playing in this game because I just – Texas can't help who they play. They can't help that Michigan, even though Michigan did beat Ohio State at the end of the year, they can't help that Michigan struggled. They can't help that Oklahoma struggled and all that. But I don't know, man. Texas just feels like that team. Everybody is pumping up and almost a pump up to watch them fall. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
No, you're not wrong. A lot of people, I think people like the Texas Longhorn defense. It has been pretty impressive this year. They have the Jim Thorpe winner. But not losing to Georgia twice does hurt, but still look at that path. I mean, if they can just get let's assuming they get past Clemson, they get past Arizona State, their only matchup that's going to be pretty tough is Oregon. And now I'll say Oregon is the best overall team in this 12-team playoff. But
You think?
yeah, I think so. But the fact that this game's going to be in the Cotton Bowl in the semifinal, I think that's to Texas' advantage. Uh, I think their only problem right now, and a lot of people, a lot of fans, a lot of haters will say, Quinn Ewers. can he not make mistakes when it really counts? Because this season he's made mistakes. He's made some bad throws, bad interceptions, but people also forget some of the great plays he's made this year. So I guess there's just a coin flip on which Quinn Ewers is going to show up for this playoff.
Yeah, he's been weird this year, and especially the last month. He's thrown more interceptions than he has touchdowns, but yet he's made 3 or 4 throws on key downs where he just threads the needle. I don't know. They just feel weird. But let's go ahead and start with the game that we're going to be watching live here on OutDrank The Coverage, and that being number 7 Notre Dame versus number 10 Indiana, Friday, December 20th at 7 p.m. The Indiana Bowl, I think this is marvelous work by the committee to put these two teams against each other. I know some Indiana fans might not be happy with it, but I like Indiana in this game. But I also think people have really underrated, I think, is a solid, I'm not saying a great, but I think a solid Notre Dame team.
Yeah, and just going back to what I was saying earlier, neither team played a really tough schedule. They've had impressive wins. Their offenses have looked impressive. Notre Dame's quarterback Riley Leonard hasn't been asked to do too much in that offense. They just have a lot of talent around him. In Indiana, Rourke, the quarterback, he's had a really good year, but a lot of people are going to be pointing to that Ohio State game, their only loss of the year, 38-15, and question marks will be raised. But yeah. All of these first round matchups are very hard for me to predict, including this one. This is in-state. I think it's just going to be fun. It's going to be in the 20s, a night game in South Bend. I want to go ahead and just give Notre Dame the win here. I think Indiana's had a great Cinderella story. Cignetti's has something to build on in future years. But I think Notre Dame, they just have more talented players. They have the home field advantage. I know Indiana doesn't have to travel far, but I'm gonna take the Irish. I'm thinking they win by about 10 points.
I like Indiana in this game. I think that you said it best that it's going to be blustery, it's going to be cold, it's going to be raw. Notre Dame's passing game hasn't really been great. It's not been bad. You said it best. It's they kind of have done what they needed to offensively through the pass game. They don't have a guy that has over 500 yards of receiving. I just think that Indiana's run defense can lock in on that Notre Dame run game, and when Notre Dame can't pass, I think that's where they're going to struggle. And by the way, you can flip it the other way. Notre Dame's defense has been really good all year too. I don't know, man. I don't know. I just think that Curtis Rourke and that offense for Indiana will do enough. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I think like a 13-10 type of game. But just give me not every. Well, I say not. It very well could happen. There's going to be some upsets, and I don't even know if this is an upset. I think these two teams are on the same level.
Yeah, I think they're on the same level, same record, about same ranking. Again, third time I said this, their schedules weren't that tough. Like Georgia's schedule is very, very tough. But in comparison, theirs was tough. They had impressive wins. They seem pretty evenly matched. They're both really good defensive teams. So in that case, when they're all similar to me, I'm just going to go with the team that's at home.
I have no problem with that. I don't think that it matters as much as it used to, but it definitely still does matter. All right, so I have Indiana. You have Notre Dame to go on to take the winner of Georgia. In the bottom half of the right side of the bracket, if you're looking at the screen, we've got, of course, the Cinderella. Great story. And I do agree with you. They became at least as big of a story as Indiana did. SMU going into Penn State December 21st at 11 a.m. I think that helps SMU. I think Penn State at night's kind of like Texas Tech at night. I think it's completely different. This is definitely one I think has huge upset. For all the talk about, you talk about Indiana, I haven't been impressed with Penn State at all this year.
I agree with you, and it's the same issue I've had with this team for years. Ever since they got the head coach, I think it's from Vanderbilt.
James Franklin.
James Franklin, yes. Brain fart there. Sorry. They've been top 15, top 10 team. They've been hovering. They've been getting close to being a top team, but they just, for some reason, just like in the Ohio State game and just like with the Oregon game, both were, one score losses, but it never seemed like they had a chance to win, even though the scores were close. I like their quarterback. Aller is really good. I think they don't have enough skill position, like talented players on the wide receiver spot. I think they're solid, but not great. And I think Aller has to do a lot to overcompensate for that. So I am giving him his flowers there. I think he's a really good quarterback. But Penn State always seems like the team that can get you a few defensive stars, and they have a solid enough quarterback. And in this case, they have the best tight end in football, Tyler Warren, Mackey Award winner. But I think they're good enough to. It's in Happy Valley. It's 107,000 fans. They got a playoff game. They're going to be crazy. As much as Aller has issues with help around him, I think Jennings is in a worse situation with SMU, the quarterback for SMU, Jennings.
What do you mean?
I think he has less skill position players around him than Aller has at Penn State.
Oh, really?
I feel that way, and I feel
wow.
No, they have a really good running back. They have a really good running back. Rashad Smith, 1,000-yard rusher, but I feel that will be the difference in this game. And I think Penn State, it'll be slow and sluggish the first half, but I think Penn State will pull away in the second half, and they'll win probably I couldn't give you a final score, but I'm thinking 31-17.
See, I don't think, again, some of the things I think are most overrated is when people say that A&M and Penn State are two of the toughest places to play. Okay, then name their key victories at home. What is Penn State's last key victory at home? Like, I don't even have the answer. That's not like a surprise. I don't remember because they can't beat ranked teams. That again, like you said, James Franklin, he's done a lot. People need to remember where Penn State was when he came in, and he has done a wonderful job, and he has got them at the cusp. But they haven't been able to push through, and so I think that SMU has that mentality of it don't matter. It don't matter who we play. We don't care. We're just happy to be here. And you could say, well, that means they're going to lose. No, I mean it more of we're just happy to be here, so we're going to play balls to the wall. And I massively disagree with you about the skill players. Now, I can totally agree with you about Penn State's probably got a better defense. Penn State's probably got a better offensive line. SMU's offensive line can be a little shaky at times. SMU can at times have some really bad turnover issues. But offensively, man, with Kevin Jennings at quarterback, Brashad Smith, Roderick Daniels at wide receiver, Kayshawn Smith at wide receiver, Jordan Hudson, Moochie Dixon, RJ Maryland, Matthew Kilmer, all of them have 300 or more yards receiving. That is spreading the ball around. 3,000 yards, and you don't have 1,000-yard receiver. 3,400 yards officially passing as a team, and you don't have a 1,000-yard receiver. That's impressive to me because that means you spread the ball around. I think they're going to give Penn State's defense fits. I think SMU wins this game 35-31 or something like that. It's going to be a high-scoring game because I don't think Penn State's defense is going to be able to deal with the quickness of SMU's skill guys.
I would love for SMU to win this game, but again, this is the first year of the 12-team format. I'm usually just going to go for the home team in all but one of these games. And Penn State as a kid, I love them. To this day, I still love their uniforms. I think they're the cleanest and best looking in college football. But yeah, having said all that, it's hard for me to pick SMU over Penn State in this game, but I would root for the upset.
Oh yeah, again, I like what James Franklin is doing at Penn State, but they've got to win an important game before I can move them on. All right, number 8 Ohio State versus number 9 Tennessee, Saturday 21st, December 21st, 7 p.m. This is the purely on paper best matchup of the first round.
Yeah. Tennessee had that one bad loss to Georgia, but it was in Georgia. The real bad loss was actually earlier in the season at Arkansas. They haven't played many road games this year, and they haven't looked the best on the road this year. But they got a redshirt freshman quarterback and Nico Iamaleava. He's really good. He's a big dude, 6'6". Uh, honestly, as much as Will Howard is impressed at Ohio State, especially in that loss to Oregon earlier this year, I think Tennessee wins the quarterback matchup here. They are mostly a run heavy offense. Samson, he had almost 1,500 yards. And that's kind of odd because, Ohio State, they got the Ole Miss transfer, Kinshawn Judkins, who I was really impressed with 2 years ago at Ole Miss, but he's kind of gradually declined in talent.
Yeah.
But just looking at both teams, this is the one I think, even though Tennessee has struggled on the road, I think Ryan Day is coaching for his job in 2025, and I think he might have to look for a job because I think Tennessee is going to go into Columbus and pull off the upset.
Man, I agree with that. I think Tennessee wins, but unless Ohio State comes out and they're listless and there's hangover from that Michigan loss, I know fan bases and big money donors and all that get a little goofy, but if you're going to fire a guy because he can't win one game in the last few years, but he's winning everything else, then I think you're making a colossal mistake because you're not guaranteed. And this is the thing that I've learned as I've gotten older is making a move doesn't guarantee you're getting, success. You're going to take the next step. In fact, you can end up taking many steps backwards. And there's a lot of things about Ryan Day I don't like his beard, and he just looks like he's kind of creepy. I ain't gonna lie. He just looks like a creepy person. But the dude has done a lot of good things at Ohio State. And yeah, I know they can't get past Michigan. Well, guess what? For 4 years before that, Michigan couldn't beat Ohio State. It's a rivalry, folks. It goes in cycles. That's just how it is. But it wouldn't shock me either. Now, again, if they come out and lose, 24-3 or something like that, well, then, yeah, I think you can make a case for it. But I think Tennessee wins, but I think Ryan Day's job at least should be safe.
He needs to work on his hair dye because he looks so
Just let
ridiculous.
it go, man. Go gray, dude. It looks better. I promise you.
I completely agree because it just looks weird on him right now. I don't. He's a young guy. I think he's like early to mid 40s. It just looks awful. But anyway, that has nothing to do with the game. Yeah, I mean, I like Ohio State's had an impressive year. The loss to Michigan sucks, but they had a great, if you can call it a great loss at Oregon. Or Ohio State and Boise State were the only two teams that really put an effort in shutting down Oregon this year, and they both teams did really good. Boise State's only loss was to Oregon. It was early in the season. It was a low-scoring game, but yeah, I have to go with the Volunteers here. And I really feel that I agree with you. I think the rivalry loss to Michigan the last few years has soured Buckeye fans on Ryan Day, but he's an excellent recruiter. He was such a great replacement to Urban Meyer. They've been consistently in the playoff or getting close to it. If it was me, if I was the AD, I would not be making that move no matter what happens in this game. Because with Ryan Day, you're guaranteed to get in that position, and he gets the best recruiting class almost every year. So
now you can make the case. I was gonna say you could make the case. If they keep losing that game, that's going to hurt them. But, it never really hurt Mac Brown back when he couldn't beat Oklahoma for a stretch. And that's kind of, Penn State and Ohio State both kind of feel like that. Like they're where Texas was like in 1999, 2000, 2001, 2002, where they were really, really close, but they just couldn't quite break through. And so, I'm just curious. I don't know. This is one of the games that it's almost curious because I don't, it's not that I want them to lose, but I kind of want to see what happens if Ohio State loses. Maybe that's why I'm so big on, I think, that they're going to pull the upset off.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think there'll be a lot of nerves at in Columbus right now. Just, they've gotten this close so many times and they just failed. So yeah, there'll be some nerves. I think they might start sluggish and the Boo Birds will come out at Ohio Stadium, and this just depends on if Ryan Day is gonna be the if he's the great coach that everybody says he is. Let's see how he adjusts to all of it.
All right, so let me go back over to the bracket. So to recap, You and I are different on two of them. Wow, two of the three you and I are different on. And I admit both of mine are considered upsets, but I don't think this is going to be a stable. A, it's the first year. B, I just think all these teams are not as far apart, at least in the first round. But I have Indiana. You have Notre Dame winning their matchup. I have SMU. You have Penn State winning their matchup. We both have Tennessee pulling off. I don't even know if this is really an upset. I think I think this is where the whole seeding thing becomes. They need to work on it. I don't think Tennessee and Ohio State should be playing each other. Or you could make the case that the brackets are so close that you're going to have good teams playing each other in the first round, which that is a valid point.
That is a valid point, and I think one of my recommended changes for next year, even though I like the way the brackets look, I think you should reseed each round.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things you're going to have to do. Again, as we talked about, I think if you're going to give 5 conferences the automatic locks, all 5 of them should be your top 5 seeds. You can talk about the whole, that's not fair if you're Georgia and you don't win the SEC and then Boise State, then just go beat them in Boise State. I mean, if you're the better team, it shouldn't matter. But anyway. Let's finish up not finish up the show because we have a couple other things we want to talk about. But let's finish up the playoff first round preview with the one that affects me as a fan, and that is Clemson versus Texas. Clemson, of course, gets in because they beat SMU in a crazy end to the ACC championship. It looked like SMU tied it. They then give up a big return. Clemson does what it needs to do to get in position, and they kick a field goal. This game, by the way, is the 21st at 3 p.m. Saturday at 3. I'll be honest with you. I told you this at the beginning. And maybe this is just me as a fan, but I don't feel comfortable about this game. I know a lot of the things work well in Texas's favor, being at home. Clemson's offense has struggled this year. At times, Texas's defense has been dominating. No matter, even when they've lost, they've looked good. But Clemson's defense is actually, while stat-wise they're not great, they do get turnovers. Well, that's one thing they do. They create opportunities for their offense. And as we were talking about earlier, and we can talk about Quinn Ewers, but Texas tends to put the ball on the ground a couple times a game too. I think this game's going to be a lot closer than what people think.
Yeah, I think it'll be closer. And I think Texas might have a couple of turnovers there. This is the game. Now, I know a lot of people looking at this game think this is going to be the big upset. Me personally, I think they think that because they're thinking college basketball, and typically in the NCAA tournament, the 5-12 matchup usually has the upset. And from my opinion, I still think Texas is going to prevail in this game. I guess maybe I have more of an objective look at this. Texas is the better team. The only team I could see now, okay, they lost to Georgia twice, so I guess I can't have to throw in Georgia, but it's Oregon, Georgia, Texas all year long. I think they're the 3 best teams in college football. Texas' defense is amazing. If they just get some mistake-free offensive play consistently, there's no one in this country that can beat Texas.
No, I agree with that. I totally agree with that. And you can make the case in both of their losses with Georgia. At times, Texas showed that they could be the better team. They can't be consistent, and give Georgia credit for that too. It's not just because of what Texas didn't do. We tend, that's one of the things I talk about with how we judge football or sports in general now, is we tend to forget these teams are playing other teams and teams that are comparable to them. So, if you're not doing something well, sometimes that's just simply because you're playing a team that just knows how to stop you. And I do think Texas wins this game. But I'm just saying, there's a lot of reasons why Texas could end up losing this game.
It's going to probably be like 10-10 going into the second half. Clemson quarterback Kay Klubnik, who's an Austin native, probably will have a couple of turnovers in the second half. And that's kind of how I'm seeing this game playing out. I think it'll be pretty tight to start, but I think because of Texas' defense, I think they're gonna cause some turnovers on Clemson's offense, and I think that's what's going to lead to a much bigger victory, like points wise, than most people are guessing right now.
Well, I mean, everybody I've seen it's like 24-6 Texas, 31-7, and all that.
I've
And
seen the
maybe
exact opposite. I've seen like Clemson winning every like
oh,
it.
really? I haven't seen one. I thought I was being different. I haven't seen one. In fact, in one of the things what was it? The Joe, the Clatt
Yeah, Joe Clapp,
podcast.
the Colorado QB.
Yeah, his podcast. He was literally like he broke down the games, and it literally was like 10 minutes Tennessee and Ohio State, 10 minutes Indiana, Notre Dame, and then with Clemson, Texas, he's like Texas will win. Let's move on. And like I haven't seen one person pick Clemson. Maybe that's why I'm so nervous. Literally and I'm one of those, man, when it comes to the big games in college and then every week in pro, I love to read predictions. I like to just see what people think. And I guess maybe that's why I'm so phrased. I have yet to see one person pick Clemson other than people saying it like, but if there's an upset, that you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people on the Clemson bandwagon. I think something happened in the ACC championship game that made people start liking Dabo Sweeney again. But
No, nobody likes Dabo Swinney.
I know
I
you
mean,
don't for sure.
well, no, I mean, I don't think it's that. I think it's just people realize, look, Clemson has taken a step back, but it's not like Clemson has lost all their talent. Clemson has just not been able to find that offensive consistency that they had for that 6-year window where they were a blue blood and winning national championships and playing for national championships and all that. For whatever reason, they haven't been able to find that. Whether it be the system's gone stale, new guys aren't doing what they, Chad Morris was there first, and they've gone through a litany of other offensive coordinators. But it's not like Clemson's devoid of talent. And I can say what I want about Dabo Swinney, but the dude's a hell of a coach, and they're really good in game. And I do think that until Sark wins a playoff game, that is a disadvantage. Dabo Swinney has big game experience. Like you said, if you go into half 10-10 and, your quarterback's thrown a couple interceptions, I don't think Dabo is going to freak out. I don't think that staff will freak out. They'll make adjustments. So, I mean, I do think there's a lot to like about Clemson in this game.
Yeah, they have the coaching, they have the pedigree, but these guys weren't there in 2016 and 2018. The players are new. They have talented players, like you said, but once again, just like with Notre Dame, just like with Penn State, this is one I'm just going to pick. Hey, who's at home? Texas, yeah. Texas has more Texas has louder fans than what people realize. I know sometimes they kind of get associated with Cowboy fans, and it's usually there's a time period where Cowboy fans were not really loud at the old stadium, but I've seen some night games at Austin, and the crowd gets pretty loud, especially for big games. So I think Texas is going to win by about 2 or 3 scores in this.
All right. So just top of your head, who do you have winning the whole tournament? And each week, and by the way, this is going to kind of be our new Monday happy hour for during the playoff weeks. And then, we'll get back to the pro stuff. Don't worry. It's going to still be there. But just top of your head, who do you have winning?
The best overall team top to bottom, the most consistent team top to bottom, Oregon.
East Texas A&M.
East Texas. Yeah, but Oregon, they have the talent. They've been consistent all year. I just feel like they're going to win it all. Finally.
The thing that is so hard, and this is one of the reasons why I am one of the few people that like the consolidation of conferences. I've said this for a while now that, I always understood why you had regional conferences in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, even the 80s and 90s. But in today's world, when flying across country is not like it used to be, it's just not as big of a deal as it used to be. I don't understand why we've kept everything so regional. I want national conferences. And the reason I want national conferences is when you start to play each other regular season, you understand these teams better. And you feel like you get to know them and know how good they are. You call them the most complete team? I don't know, I guess. I mean, I don't know. That's such a hard thing in any sport, but especially college football, to gauge. I mean, yeah, they've beat 3 ranked teams, or at least 3 teams that were ranked now. Ohio State and Penn State are really solid wins. I'm not saying that they're not. They both were in Oregon. In fact, they didn't play a ranked team on the road this year. Well, I guess they beat Boise State in Oregon. So again, that's that thing. I don't know.
And I have to apologize. That was a much higher scoring game than I realized. I thought it was 17-14, but it was 37-34.
What, the Boise State game?
Yeah.
So again, kind of to go back to talking about the Heisman and stuff, and one of the things everybody points to for Janty was, he played good in that game. Well, and he did. He played really good. He had 192 yards, I think 4 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns. But I liked what Nick Saban said, and I didn't think I'd ever say that again. He said, look, that was a great game. Not taking it away from him at all. He goes, but it's way easier to get that big game when you're playing that one big team all year long than if you're playing Oregon and then turning around and playing Ohio State or turning around and playing Georgia. And so I do think there is some truth to that. I'm not saying Janty's not going to have a great college playoff game or games, depending on what they do, but I do think that's a valid thing. We're about to see what he can do. Either they'll get beaten the first game, for them in next week, or they'll win a couple, and we'll see where he stacks up against better teams.
Yeah, we'll see, because this is the time of the year, and they're in the playoffs. They're going to play at least one really good team, and if they somehow make it to the semifinals, they're going to play another good team. So that is a good point. Like, let's see what Boise State does. All those years back in the 2000s when they were going undefeated or losing one game and just being right outside the playoff picture, or the BCS top 2, they got screwed out a few years, but now they're in the playoffs. Let's see what they finally do.
Mario Scott, I think, agrees with me about Dabo. He's succinctly said, F him. Yeah. And I kind of agree with that. Hey, speaking of coaches in that Carolina area, not on the south side, but up on the north side, how shocked were you when Bill Belichick took the UNC job?
Shocked at first, but when I kind of heard that he was kind of jaded with the politics of the NFL, it kind of made more sense to me. Still shocked, though.
I want to explain. Jaded by the politics of the NFL was 2 things. A, the NFL wasn't hiring him. The NFL has felt
insane to me.
Why is that insane to you? He's old. The game has passed him by.
I've watched the Coach podcast on YouTube this season. He's still with it. And I still think for at least 2 or 3 years, he can be a very capable head coach on a very good team. And I think he can get he's not far away from Don Shula's record. I think at some point he will venture back to the NFL. Maybe he's keeping the Carolina job for his son in the 3 to 4 years. I don't know.
So you think in 3 to 4 years, Bill Belichick might try to go back to the pro? Because what will he be then? Like 80?
75.
75? Okay. Yeah, I just don't see that. And him talking on a podcast, I don't disagree with you there. I've listened to him. I've listened to John Gruden. Hell, John Gruden sounds like to me, why is he? And I'm not talking about I'm just about pure coaching. John Gruden sounds like he should still be coaching in the league, but I would not want John Gruden to be head coach of my team. And again, not even talking about all the behind the scenes stuff. When I think the biggest things that NFL owners see with Belichick is A, his age, B, I'll say 3 things. B, his roster management really wasn't all that good in New England. You really actually start looking at who they drafted and all that. And also, I do think there's he hasn't ever won anything significant without Tom Brady. And I think the worst thing that happened to Bill Belichick was that Tom Brady left, goes to Tampa Bay, and people don't understand how close that Tampa Bay team really was, but then wins a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay. And Belichick hired a defensive coordinator as his offensive coordinator. And I really think that that's a bigger knock on him than people. I mean, folks, he hired a guy who wasn't even considered that great of a defensive coordinator, was a terrible head coach, and then brought him in as an offensive coordinator. And Matt Patricia. That made no sense. I genuinely understand why. I don't think he ever gets an NFL job. Unless somebody like Jerry swings for the fences. I could see that, of course. But other than that, I think people, I'm not saying they're right. I'm just saying, I think the NFL thinks the game is passing by at the NFL level.
It was funny because right after we heard about him going to Carolina, there was a report that he inquired about the Jets head coaching position, which I'm kind of thinking, man, you kind of screwed them over 25 years ago. I don't know why you barking up that same tree again.
I don't know if I believe that because he
I
is
want to
always,
believe it.
I do too, but he has always been very adamant. Like there's that clip of him and Parcells when they did that. A couple years ago, they came back together and talked and had that interview, and they were in the Giants locker room and all that, and they kind of mended their fences. It was a really good show. In fact, if we'd have been doing this show like that, and we might even go back one day and just do a look back at it, but there's an outtake where they said something about, well, do you want to go over on the other side and, in the Jets locker room and do a segment there? And they both said, fuck the Jets. So I don't really know how much I believe he inquired fully. Now, he might have been just gauging interest of, if I were to apply, would you be interested, just to see where how the NFL saw him. But the other thing, I think, when they talk about politics, I meant to come back to this. I think him and Robert Kraft have completely fallen out.
Yeah.
There's that documentary that came out about the dynasty and all, and I haven't seen it fully, but apparently Robert Kraft basically minimizes everything that Bill Belichick did. And it's basically like Kraft and Brady took the Patriots to all the champions, and oh yeah, that dude was our coach too. And while I think that Bill Belichick gets overrated, I think you're absolutely stupid if you're not going to contend that he's not major 1A or 1B to Brady of why they won those Super Bowls and why they had that 17-year run.
I think it's one of those where ego's getting in the way, and if they all were just being objective about it, they'd realize they needed Belichick, they needed Brady, they needed Kraft. It's the Holy Trinity. They needed New England for almost 20-year dynasty, and the quicker they're able to acknowledge that, the quicker they can just move on and patch things up. That Tom Brady bros didn't really patch things up. It was just more for show.
I don't think it'll ever patch up. I don't think that Kraft and Belichick are too old.
And they both like young women, so I'm not sure what the problem is. They have so much in common.
I mean, they could get a babysitter for their dates. And they could
Well, you know what? Honestly, though, so going back to Belichick going to North Carolina.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
I think, I can't put my mindset in an 18-year-old talented player, but I know me. If I was one of these top recruits, I would want to coach or I want Bill Belichick to be my coach for 3 to 4 years, because I think I could learn so much, because I want to go to the NFL. The college system is more like a business at this point. They're starting to hire GMs. Hell, Andrew Luck is the GM for Stanford at his alma mater. These are business organizations. These are run like NFL franchises. Bill Belichick, I mean, okay, yeah, some of his personnel moves lately weren't the best, but he knows how to run it. Like I almost feel that NFL coaches are going to start moving into the college, because it's just kind of similar, and they're going to get paid well, and they're going to get some security, and they can recruit these young guys, and they don't have to baby them because they're out in 3 to 4 years.
Well, I 100% would agree with you, except for the transfer rules, because the one thing the NFL coaches have is at least
free agency.
But with free agency, when your guy's free agent,
1 year. The only difference is 1 year in college.
No, what I'm saying though is, like, if I'm a GM or I'm the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys and I sign you to a 3-year deal, I have complete control over you for those 3 years. I can use you for those 3 years. I can cut you. I can trade you. With college, you bring in a guy, you work months to get a dude in, and he might not be happy for one game and go into the transfer and you lose him. So I think that's the only thing that might keep NFL coaches from looking more into the the college. I agree with you about the money. I agree with you about everything else, especially everybody goes, well, how can Belichick recruit? Belichick's not going to recruit. Belichick's going to be brought in to seal the deal. He's going to be brought in on the living room visits at the end. And by the way, folks, that's what Nick Saban does. That's what Steve Sarkisian. Yes, they have guys that they like. And yes, they'll go watch them. But at the end of the day, they're not making the first contact. It's their assistants. And like you said, now you have whole recruiting departments, recruiting coordinators, general managers. And I agree 100% on all that. I just think the one thing that might keep is that 1 year. You never know how long you have a guy. Now, some coaches might take that as a challenge. And I do think that you're going to start seeing some of the transfer stuff. And as big as I am into freedom of all players, they need to fix some things about the transfer and the portal and things like that. I think they've got to figure out this winter portal crap. They've got to get it to where a guy can sign in the spring portal, but also still play for spring football. Because that's why so many are jumping in now is coaches don't want to bring in a quarterback that they can't start using until August. They want to bring them in for spring football. And that's one thing, the portal and how football works now, spring football, which was kind of dying about 4 or 5 years ago, has now become the biggest thing of college football ever, because you want to get that quarterback in and get him to learn your system and get all those reps you're going to get in spring football. So there's some things like that they're going to have to figure out, in my opinion, to make the portal and all that completely work.
And I think for some of the good players that will benefit from talented guys around them, they're going to probably stay past the first year. But yeah, the whoever can figure out the transfer portal, the science behind it, how to retain players, or how to get players from other teams, just try to lure them in. That's the next evolution in recruiting. And whoever masters that is going to probably be the next dynasty, the next Alabama for the next 10 years.
All right, Big Jiggly Water Balloons. Love the name. Makes me think of Dolly Parton for some reason. He thinks Boise has one of the best shots at winning it all. I do too. If they get hot, I could see Boise running the table. I legitimately could. For a team like them, or even a team like SMU, or even, let's say, a Clemson, anybody that's the underdog, it's the first game's the hardest one. Because you get winning, that ball starts to roll downhill. But it's getting through that first game. Mario Scott said, and I agree with this, and this kind of goes to what you're saying, and this is a really good point. I think we're underestimating the year 3 to 5 transfer portal guys, the juniors, the redshirt juniors, who want to go to the NFL. Chapel Hill becomes a no-brainer. I agree with that. I 100% agree with that. You maybe North Carolina runs on that old, like, I'm trying to think of some of the basketball coaches that always are using transfer guys. And that's kind of how they built. Texas a few years ago, that's how they did it. They got a bunch of transfers, and they ran
Texas Tech for a few years with Beard.
Yeah, and that's what he was doing at Texas too, Chris Beard. He lived off that transfer, that transfer thing. And so I agree with that. Now, I don't know how good that'll make UNC. Will that mean that they're a team of a bunch of seniors every year, or is that going to be? Are they going to be like a junior college team where those guys are only looking out for what they do?
That was in my head when I saw Mario Scott's post. To me, that's the equivalent. The 3 to 5 year transfer portal guy. That's a JUCO player.
Yep.
We're just assigning new names to old concepts, essentially.
And if people don't understand, in junior college football, it is a interesting in between. And I'm not saying that everybody that plays JUCO ball is only looking for their next ride, but even JUCO coaches will tell their JUCO players, hey, winning's great, but you're here to make the next scholarship. And so can a guy that is so culture motivated in Belichick, is he going to be able to do that with a guy who only has a year? Is he going to be able to do that where every year he's rotating through a different quarterback and different, guys? Can he establish that culture? Because again, with Belichick, it's not about it's not about he's going to produce 25 first rounders. In fact, you might see where a lot of the UNC guys that succeed through him are fourth rounders because they might not have all the talent, but they're football guys because they've been molded by Belichick. But can he do that when he only has 1 year with a guy? I think it's a fascinating study. I don't think it's going to work. I think it might even fail miserably. I'm not saying Urban Meyer to Jacksonville miserably. I don't think he's going to be detached or anything. I just don't know if Belichick, I don't know if Belichick ever would be what I call a college coach. I think there is a difference in the two. Some guys can do it both, but I think it's a lot of times you're either a college coach or a pro coach.
You have a point. I think Belichick will do well. I think he's going to attract some marquee players. I really don't know how it's going to translate onto the field. I think one coach that moved I think it's going to be great. And this is the second dance. This is the make good from leaving for Michigan. Rich Rodriguez coming back to West Virginia. I love that move.
By the way, our stream 3 weeks ago, we had 2 people come in and claim that. And then for 2 weeks, nothing happened, and they named him. I don't know. Again, if the danger when you bring a guy back is they try to do it the exact same way, and college football isn't where college football was in 07. The things that they were doing that was groundbreaking then, everybody does now.
It's just the speed West Virginia had back in the day with Pat White and Slayton. It was Tavon Austin. It was just
Noel Devine. Yep.
Yeah, Noel Devine. Oh, yeah, Noel Devine was great.
Dude, that's a guy. You want to talk about a 30 for 30 on, and one of the reasons why I'm not the biggest Deion Sanders as a coach fan is, and he wasn't even a coach then, but he dragged him to Texas, and then he just never got to be the great player that I think he could have been. And that's not all on Deion. I'm just saying there's a part of that where Deion had a little bit to do with that. But Noel Devine, dude, speed, great vision, that whole team. I mean, we're talking about would have been, I think, considered, and I think you still consider them one of the greatest offenses of all time. But losing to Pittsburgh and that's why
at home. It was a winning end to the championship.
Was it a Thursday night game or a Saturday night game?
I don't remember, but I just remember Pittsburgh was like 5-5. Dave Wannstedt, in his most Wannstedt of years, somehow goes to Morgantown.
I think it saved his job that year. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. No, yeah. You win at West Virginia. I think they were ranked second in the country.
And that's one of those weird rivalries that a lot of people don't know about. Like you don't think of it, but Pittsburgh, West Virginia has always been kind of one of those just odd sectional rivalries that work. Again, playoffs. West Virginia would have been in the playoffs that year. West Virginia could have shaken that loss off, and maybe that's one of the reasons why I love the playoffs. Look, it's fun to be an undefeated team if you're like UT in 2005. In fact, this helmet that I have here actually is not just a Longhorn helmet; it's the got their championship year and everything. And, I have the football. It has their record, and it's great to be 15-0. But the one thing I remember telling my dad once the playoffs happen like this, that doesn't matter anymore. I'd rather take 2 losses against 2 good teams or Texas, the same team twice, and learn from that than go 15-0 but not really been tested. And that's the thing. You have said it over and over and over tonight. These teams who haven't been tested. And how are they going to react in a playoff? Their first time when the big lights and the big boys, and you haven't been able to beat everybody 45-0.
I just like with the 12 team, there's no team I would say it was left off. Like you can make.
What about Alabama?
No, you couldn't make if this was last year, you wouldn't be even in a discussion. You lost 3 games. Shut up. Go on with your business. This is 12 teams. If you can't be a top 12 team. Or you can be top. If you can't even be top 8, don't even think about playoffs. Okay, just stay home. You weren't good enough. If you weren't good enough to be in the top 8 during the season, then you just ain't good enough to be in these playoffs. And I hate because there's always going to be in the college basketball tournament. There's always that 69th team, the 70th team. Oh, we were left out.
Yeah,
we were good. And I'm like, you weren't even look. 68 teams is about half of D1, and if you're somehow somewhere like in the vicinity of that lower half, that's the high 60s to low 70s, you don't deserve to even be in there.
Okay, I will say this. I agree with you, but I will say this: that 69th team, nice. They're not getting in, and even if they got in, they're not winning even a first round game.
That's my whole point. South Carolina.
Hang on. If Alabama got in, they could easily win the national championship.
I saw that Oklahoma game. They ain't win no championship.
I'm not saying they would, but I'm saying that there is a difference between the 12. Like if you went to college basketball and you cut it off at 12, the 13th ranked team in the nation could win a national championship. So I like the fact that an Alabama got cut off because that's my point. I think there's more weight to it if you're the 13th team and you feel left out because you have a valid argument that if you got in and the bracket broke right, you could win. I enjoy that. That's what we need. We need the good teams being left out.
That's how it was going on in the 14 playoff. That's how it was going on the BCS. That hasn't changed. There's always going to be there's South Carolina supporters, there's Alabama supporters that feel that they should be included. There's Ole Miss supporters. I say that 12 teams is a good number. If you can't crack the top 12, then you just weren't good enough to win the championship. But I respect your opinion on this. I can see your point. I just feel that this would be a mute point last year.
No, I'm agreeing with what you said. If you can't crack the 12, you don't deserve to be in it. But I'm just saying, if Alabama got put in instead of SMU, would you be shocked if Alabama won a national championship?
No, because I mean, I do think they're a top 12 team. Don't get me wrong. I just feel like they should have not lost 3 games, especially a couple of bad losses.
And that right there, it's not just that they lost; it's who they lost to, and that goes back to the I don't care if you beat 5 top-ranked teams, if you can't beat the other teams that keeps you in the playoff circle, that's on you. You know, yeah, Vandy had a better season than they've had in a long time. You still should not be beat by Vandy. Tennessee didn't get beat by Vandy. Texas didn't get beat by Vandy. You know, you can't complain that you beat a top like you if you're 10-3 and you beat the top 10, but your 3 losses are to 18th ranked and below, that's bad. You've got to figure that out. And so, yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I agree with what you mean in theory. I'm just saying I think it makes it more enjoyable because the 13th ranked team in football could legitimately, if they got in most years, at least be competitive in the national championship bracket.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
So do you think that they'll stay with 12 or do you think that this is something they'll expand? I think 12 is going to be the sweet spot.
I think 4 was to prepare everybody for an expanded roster. I thought they would go from 4 to 8, but going from 4 to 12 seems kind of drastic. I think 12 to 16 is probably the sweet spot, like you were saying. They should probably do 12 for at least 5-6 years and just see what happens. I like this number. If they go to 16, I'm okay with it too. But no, nothing more than that.
All right, let's finish the show. We'll swing back over to the NFL. Right now, the Minnesota Vikings lead the Chicago Bears 10-0. Atlanta and Las Vegas are 0-0. I don't understand why this late in the season they went back to the double. I like the doubleheader on the Monday Night Football. In fact, I see a day where Monday night always has 2 games.
And I'm fine with that too. I think when I was shaking my head because of Atlanta and Vegas. I just feel like there'll be a change at quarterback. Oh, I forgot Desmond Ridder is playing for the Raiders, and he's playing this game. So it's like the former Falcon quarterback.
Oh, he's starting?
Yeah, because Aiden O'Connell's hurt, and then of course Gardner Minshew's out for the year.
Well, also Aiden O'Connell's also terrible. Yes, I have to wait. I say yes. Never mind. I can't say yes now. So I wanted to bring up fantasy because in OutDrank The Coverage, we have 2 leagues. Both of us have made the playoffs. How are you doing in your 2 playoff games?
I'm losing in one. In the OutDrank The Coverage leagues, I'm gonna have a bye in ODTC the league.
Yeah,
and I'm winning in OutDrank The Coverage.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to advance to the semifinals, and I think you're going to advance to the semifinals too, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, yeah, and ODTC, the league, I am very proud of my team. No, he won't win the title because I started out terrible, 0-3, and then I came cruising down in the last part of the year. I finished in 4th place, and I am beating artist formerly known as him. I'm going to win 150. I'm up 158 to 98. But I want to go to the other one, ODTC or OutDrank The Coverage League. I was first for most of the year. I I have a bad quarterback situation, and I lost 2 of the last 4, so I tumbled to 3rd. And then I'm in this matchup where I should be winning by a lot because my opponent, she had Brock Purdy. She had Cooper Kupp, who had no catches. Amari Cooper, who had no catches. David Montgomery, who got hurt really early and all. But my team decided they want to crap the bed as well when Derrick Henry and Barkley have a combined 16 points. And so here I am right now up 72.83 to 72.21. Now she can't score another point, but my problem is right now I'm being bolstered the fact because my defense is playing, so they get the automatic. But now they've started out good. Atlanta has a sack, they have a fumble and all, but I need Jordan Addison to make a couple catches. And oddly enough, I also need the Vegas kicker to have a couple kicks and Bowers to make some catches. So I'm in this weird thing where I need a couple guys offensively for the Raiders to do well, but not too well. But honestly, I just need to I need to get up to 70 or to 80 points and then I'll be safe. And so it's been a weird finger, nail biting when I should have won this game by like 70 points.
Yeah, you should have won. But bad luck to Football Girl, former champion and OutDrank The Coverage. It's just with Cooper Kupp and Cooper not doing so well, then it was a guaranteed win for you, but you're struggling too. It's just one of those off weeks. Everybody's having an off week. Like good teams are about to lose in the first round. It kind of sucks for them. But, I should be advancing to the semifinals along with you in both of our OutDrank The Coverage leagues. It could be finally time for me to cut down the nets to finally be champion. I'll get over the no, he won't win a championship hurdle. And you also are a former champion and OutDrank The Coverage. So
yeah, I'm trying to win in our second league just so I can do the double.
Yeah.
And then hang the banners. Where are you? And next year we will do a better job at it. We will make a full-on Patreon show. We were going to do it this year, but just timing and stuff. But where are you in your playoffs and stuff? How many leagues did you make the playoffs in?
So I was in 5 leagues in total. I made the playoffs in 4. I will lose in a dynasty league I'm in pretty handedly. And I'm winning both of our OutDrank The Coverage leagues, and I'm going to win in another league. So I'll make the semifinals in 3 out of the 5 leagues, which is not bad. How about you?
Well, I'm going to make the playoffs. Well, I made the play. So I'm in outside of our leagues. The other leagues I do after the first week. It's just I did it once by mistake, and for some reason I really enjoy the extra. Start 1 week later, end 1 week later. I've made the playoffs, of course, in R2. I've made the playoffs in 2 others. I did 7 leagues, so I made the playoffs in 4 of 7. I missed out on having my highest playoffs of 5 of 7. I'm going to lose this week. I was the 4th place team. The 3rd place team and the 5th place team are both going to win. And so I have no way. I'm going to end up 1 game out. But hey, out of 7 leagues, if I can make the playoffs 4 times a year, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. That's a lot of lineup management you have to do there and waiver pickup. Like there's a lot going on, but it for you and I, we love it. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, this has been the year that I've tinkered the most with a lot of leagues. I'm unless I go through injury stuff, I'm a get my guys and I'm not saying I don't look at the waiver wire, but I don't switch out 1,000 players. But this year it feels like I've hit just key injuries all across. And to be honest with you, I've actually ended up enjoying it. But here's the crazy thing. I went and looked back at Yahoo stats. In the last 9 years, I've done 3 trades.
Wow. That's not a lot.
I don't do trades. I just don't trust trades. They're going to be, I don't know. I just don't know why. I've just never been a big trade guy, usually because, unless I'm desperate at position, and it depends on the leagues too. Like our leagues are deep. Like, man, if you lose a quarterback, like in one of the leagues, and I know he's been solid, but I'm having to ride Bo Nix. And man, you want to talk about being nervous for half the day yesterday because they looked absolutely terrible. Bo Nix looked like he regressed. And then all of a sudden, in that second half, things broke open, and he still didn't. I mean, it wasn't like he pointed a shit ton of yards. But again, this was in the league we were talking about where, I just need to get to 75 and I'll win. He ended up getting good at the end. But like, I have no confidence going into next week if they win with Bo Nix, Jameis Winston, or Matt Stafford as my quarterback.
Yeah, I have to look at the matchups. I probably would go with Stafford, but after what he did, he'll have the extra time off because he played Thursday, so I'll have a couple extra days off. So yeah, I probably would go with Stafford, whoever you're playing next week.
Here's the thing that's going to hurt. In the league that I'm going to lose, I'm going to probably lose about 100. Looks like I'm going to lose probably about 125 to 110. I set Devontae Adams. Which, I mean, he hadn't been playing well.
Every other week, that was a good move.
Exactly. And sometimes you go, oh, man, the moves I did make. I don't feel bad about that one. I'd have made that move 9 times out of 10. I didn't realize the Jets were going to be like, oh, that's right. That's why we traded for him. We forgot about that. Man, that's going to be a curious all season.
It will be, yeah.
Okay, so we'll close it out real quick. Just a few more minutes. Off the cuff. First off, yesterday was boring for the most part, Red Zone. Back-to-back weeks. I think it's getting to that point of the season. Back-to-back weeks that were kind of boring. Not going to really talk about the Cowboy win. What was the thing? What was the thing that stood out the most to you from yesterday?
Probably how dominating Buffalo was over Detroit. You could say that, okay, yeah, I do consider Philadelphia a legit threat to win a Super Bowl. But again, a lot of their wins against these good teams are because, like, for example, Pittsburgh, they didn't have Pickens. That's a huge loss for someone like the Steelers. With Detroit, all those defensive injuries, and then they lose David Montgomery for the season. Having said that, I mean, I'm just thinking about teams that I'm starting to think about playoffs and Super Bowl. Buffalo looks like the best team. Detroit is looking like both 1 seeds. Detroit and Kansas City are kind of teetering with big injuries, especially with whatever happened with the ankle sprain with Patrick Mahomes.
They're saying it's a high ankle sprain, but not a serious one.
So he's week to week, essentially.
Huh?
So he's week to week.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, with him, he seems like a guy that's going to go. Now they might throttle him back, a little bit. I mean, it's one of those, do you balance trying to completely get the 1 seed, or do you get the 1 seed but grind him down to even with that bye week, he's still not 100%, or do you go, okay, let's sit him and possibly give up? Now, I still contend in that offense and how great that defense is. I think Carson Wentz could win a couple games in December and January if need be.
And they have a 2-game cushion, but really 1 game with Buffalo, but they can lose 1 game and be okay, but they need to pick and choose because they have 3 games left. I don't think they beat Denver. I think Denver gets revenge. So that kind of gets the point, like, who are you going to beat? I think they have 1 easy game left.
I just don't know if Bo Nix is ready to beat that defense.
So I take it back. The Chiefs play home to their last home game is next week against the Texans, and then they go to to Pittsburgh and to Denver. So I see them at least losing one of those games. They need to probably win both of those games. They'll beat Houston and Pittsburgh before they go to Denver because it's going to be tough to play at Denver to close out the season because I think Denver's defense is legit good enough to they did it in Kansas City. They were able to shut down Kansas City's offense, and I think they win the rematch. So
Buffalo,
they need to somehow beat the Steelers. They need to somehow beat the Texans.
Oh, wow, dude. Buffalo should not lose a game to finish. Patriots, Jets, Patriots.
Yeah. So Buffalo is going to win out. So they're going to be 14-3. So yeah, Kansas City needs to win the next 2 games just to get that buffer.
This is the thing when something happens in a sport like last week, Dan Campbell going for it and oh my God, he's so great. It always balances out. And this week, I'm sorry, that onside, especially with today's rules of the onside kick, that was stupid. That made no sense. That on a lot of teams, if you're at 7-9 or 8-8 and you're trying to make the playoffs, might get you fired. That is one of the. It won't be knocked down because it's Dan Campbell and the Lions. At least record-wise are okay, though. I think the injuries on defense are really, and now David Montgomery's out. I think that's going to be what beats them. But that onside kick just points to me that I don't know how good Dan Campbell is as a true head coach. I think a motivator. I think a player's coach. I think the players love him. I'm not doubting all that. But at the end of the day, you've got to make smart decisions in those moments to win Super Bowls. And that's that. That made no sense to me.
Yeah, it made no sense to me, number one, because I think Detroit's defense was never going to stop Buffalo's offense. And you're running the risk of, well, if Buffalo recovers that, that's a touchdown, no matter what.
Well, now, okay, but if you're saying that, then that makes me go, okay, well, then I see why he did it. We're not going to stop him anyway, so we need to take a possession. My issue was it's 11 minutes left in the game. Like, you can score. You've got two more times both of y'all can score, and there might still be 5 minutes left in the game. It wasn't like Buffalo or the Lions were going on these 10-play, 7-minute drives. I mean, we're talking 4 drives or 4 plays. I just that's the type of thing that makes me doubt him as a coach to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, they were so close last year. They have the team. Jared Goff is so great. And I guess I should go back and want to say, like, Buffalo did punt 3 times. So there were times where Detroit's defense was able to stop Buffalo. But, overall, like, if you put them in that prime position, that was a touchdown. Like, it was just too big of a risk to just make that play. But again, we've critiqued some of the stuff they've done over the last 3 seasons with him at the helm. More times than not, it works, and he's going to live and die by it. He might be that'll be his defining, moment, or not moment, but like mantra, I guess.
Yeah,
as a head coach, for good or bad, and I think eventually it'll all work out. They just need that 1 year where they're all healthy. They're starting to become the 49ers. Like a team that's just so talented, but they're just ravaged by injuries just because of the way they play. But we'll see what happens. I mean, Detroit, I think they have somewhat of a favorable final 3. I know they still have to play Minnesota. They play the Bears one more time. They play the 49ers, who are very beatable at this point. So, I mean, I could see them winning at least those next 2 games at the Bears, at the 49ers. That'll, put them at 14 wins. Which, I mean, it's insane. We're in 2024, and the Detroit Lions are probably going to be 14-2 going into their final week. Crazy.
And I don't even know if they're going to make the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, if things progress the way they are, they might not even win the division.
Does it not feel like the NFC this year, and maybe this is what, and this is what happens, and we go back to the 80s, and why was there that stretch in the 80s when the NFC went dominant? Well, because the best team in the NFC kept winning, and then the best team in the AFC wasn't always winning, and so you'd get matchups like with Denver, and this is where I have the respect for John Elway is them getting to more Super Bowls than they probably deserved. Buffalo spitting the bit in the Super Bowl, but also even the year before in the playoffs. And so basically for 5 to 10 years, the best NFC team was always playing like the 4th best AFC team, the 3rd best AFC team. It kind of feels like the NFC is about to hit that, because I'll tell you what, I kind of have a feeling that the hottest team in a month might go through the NFC. A team like Tampa, a team like the Rams. And I know the Rams look like crap Thursday night, but the Rams have done that. They look like Seattle does it. Hell, the whole NFC West does that. From one week, they all look great, and then the next week, they all look terrible. And Eagles have a great record, but, man, they have flaws. The Lions have a great record, but they have flaws. Minnesota, a good record, but they have flaws. everybody has flaws. And so usually that means the team that gets hot at the right time. And I'm not joking. And I know we have fun in our sports rehab group with a couple people about Baker Mayfield, but I'm going to say this again. I don't want to play Tampa in the playoffs.
They have the big play threat with Mike Evans, as we saw yesterday in Inglewood. They beat the Chargers pretty soundly.
I was shocked. Wasn't shocked that they beat the Chargers, but shocked that they throttled them and shocked that they did things against that defense that, has been so good this year, and Tampa had their way with them at times.
Yeah, the thing I liked about Harbaugh coming to LA was that he's going to bring consistency, winning culture. And for the most part, they're 8-6. They're better than they were last year. They're winning some of those games this year.
Are they better than they were last year?
They're 8-6. Their record says who they are.
Well, I thought they weren't they 6-8 last year? Oh no, that was the year before last. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So two years ago they made the playoffs, and the year before, as 21, they had that heartbreaking overtime loss to the Raiders that eliminated them. But last year they weren't that good. Tampa, they can stop the run when they're healthy. Baker, he looks better than he did with Dave Canales last year. So this is crazy. I really want them to do well. And I like how the Rams are playing right now. They still commit to the run. They have a young defense, kind of like the no-name defense. But yeah, let's see what happens. I kind of agree with you. I think the hot team is going to be the one that comes out of the NFC. I think the Eagles have too many issues.
Corey Thompson of Grandeur Pest Solutions, who you dealt with a couple of weeks ago.
He stopped by today to check in all the traps and stuff he installed. He came over for about an hour and a half last week. Gave me some pretty good recommendations for around the house. Install some traps by the garage.
Put up the cameras too. I'm sorry, what?
And then sprayed the whole house. Great service, very thorough, explained everything. And then he came by for about 5 minutes a day to just check on the attic, make sure everything was good. So yeah, definitely love.
So go ahead.
No, I was saying definitely love the service I got from Corey and Grandeur Pest Solutions.
Yeah, go to grandeurforsure.com for your pest solutions if you're in the DFW area. He said that he thinks Tampa Bay is scary. I think anybody in the NFC, look, I'm not going to say the AFC is guaranteed to win the Super Bowl. I think the AFC is going to win the Super Bowl. I think the AFC might, no matter who they play, depending on who the teams are, might win the Super Bowl by a couple touchdowns. But the NFC is going to be okay. How am I explaining this? They're both going to be fun playoffs for different reasons. In the AFC, it's Ravens, Bills, Chiefs. Where does CJ Stroud and the Texans? How good are they? But all really, really good teams. In the NFC, it's going to be a couple good teams and then a bunch of ankle biters. And it's going to be fun because you don't know what's going to happen week to week in those 4 weeks of the playoffs. I am. Maybe it's because. I know Dallas is going to close out and win them all and make the playoffs, but I'm just going to pretend they're not. I ain't going to lie. It's going to be nice just to have a playoffs run. I'm worried about how bad they lose in that first round. It's going to be nice to just step back and just enjoy every round of the football. By the way, I think we've not 100%, but I think we're going to do a Super Bowl live stream. I think we're going to have a Super Bowl live stream this year. We're going to talk more about that going forward. We'll also be debuting a new sponsor that we're really excited about during that time. So we'll give you all that information. But yeah, I feel that, at the end of the day, the NFC is going to be a potluck, and it's going to be a blast to watch because you can make the case if Arizona or Seattle gets in, they are scary. Atlanta, everybody can be scary in a 2-game stretch. The problem for all those teams has been finding consistency for the whole year.
Yep. Yeah, it's very true. I could make a case that for Minnesota making the Super Bowl, for Green Bay, as well as Detroit and Philadelphia, especially the Rams and Buccaneers. Washington probably not, but they're a team that's probably going to make the playoffs. So NFC is wide open, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. If I had to predict a team to win the Super Bowl, I would probably say Buffalo right now.
I want to with all my heart. I want to say Buffalo. I want to say the Ravens, but unless they can get Kansas City out of that 1 seed. I just don't see either one of them going in and beating Kansas City at Arrowhead on a 25-degree day. And I know Buffalo, it's cold too, and in Baltimore, it's cold too. But going back to what you're talking about, home field, in the NFL, in the playoffs, 25 degrees on the road feels way different than 25 degrees at your home place. It just is. It's just a different setup. It's all that. And so until that happens, I go Chiefs. I want it to be the Bills or the Ravens. I am tired of quarterbacks being held to this weird Super Bowl standard, but I accept that how it has to be. So I want Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson to finally be able to take their hat off the "we can't win the big one" mantra.
And to be honest with you, I think Lamar Jackson's having a better year this year than he did last year when he won the MVP.
But to be fair, he has a better team around him offensively. Not as good defensively, but better offensively.
Yeah, losing Patrick Queen was a big blow to their pass defense. And Mike McDonald to the Seahawks as head coach. That was also a big loss.
All right, man. I think we're done.
All right. Well, that was a good show. A little bit more abbreviated than in prior weeks, but it's a good show nonetheless. And well, I had my one drink. I had Good Night Levin.
Good night to you too. Oh, you're drinking, yeah. I didn't drink. Just too much going on this week. That means come Friday night when we're watching Indiana and Notre Dame, I'm probably going to get tore up from the floor up and be very vocal. I'm trying to see if I can get an Indiana shirt in before so I can become Hoosier fan. I don't know why. I
get like a Gene Hackman shirt.
Hey, I'll be. You've seen Hoosiers, right?
Yeah, but I have to probably watch it again because
I'll be the Dennis Hopper of the show.
Okay.
The alcoholic who needs to dry out. Yeah, Mario Scott, you do need to tune in more often. Right here on FM 94, Pinky in the Butt. Sorry, I've always wanted to do that intro. Anyway.
It's time for the old time.
Oh, wow. Corey had a Jack Daniel's winter whiskey. What do they do? What do they do? Put snow in it? Do they stuff little snowmen in there alive? Like, no, don't do that. Well, I didn't even drink. I did have I guess I could say I had a Colorado edible maybe. Anyway, that's going to do it for this week. We'll be back again Friday. Okay, I want to hang on. I got to turn the music down. So if you're a high school football fan, starting Wednesday, I'll be doing live streaming of the 2A games, 3A games, and 4A games Wednesday night through Friday night. It will be me mostly. You're going to come in for the Friday game, Salina versus Kilgore, to wrap up the 4A and all of my state championships. And then you and I are going to live stream the Grandeur Pest Solutions Indiana versus Notre Dame watch party. And we're going to watch the game like we've done the Monday night. Probably it'll just be over on the sideline set because I have to move everything over there for the whole week, and it'll just be easier. So you'll get to sit in Grant Goodwin's seat. I will make sure it gets sprayed before you come over. In fact, I might need Corey to come over and spray it down. Speaking of Corey Grandeur Pest Solutions, my co-host spilt Coke, didn't tell anybody. I'm setting up the studio, and I have to battle like 17 billion ants today. It's bad enough when you live on a lake, you're going to get a ton of ants. But my goodness, man, I love you, Grant. But anyway, now cue the music. Until next time, he's intern Noe the Pro, and I'm Terry Bennett, the host. And this has been OutDrank the Coverage on L.